Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We are right now in the midst of a strong solar storm impact that just got stronger. The magnetic field now of this solar storm is reaching close to 40 nanotesla. And so to keep this very simple, normal strength is 5 nanotesla. Reaching up to about 40 means it's 8 times stronger than normal. But because of the way magnetic fields work, it's actually pushing much deeper into Earth's magnetic field than normal, injecting a lot more plasma into our energy environment, our plastosphere, ionosphere, and more. And well, we're also seeing a ton of earthquake activity. We just had the second strongest earthquake of 2026 pop off. That was last night when I reported a magnitude 6. Now we've had a magnitude 6.7. So as this solar storm has hit, we've had not only the third strongest, but also the second strongest, back to back within 36 hours. Also a magnitude 6.1 earthquake struck within this time period. So clearly a global seismic burst, not isolated to any one location. This is all across the globe. And well, that very likely could continue. We have these incredible coronal holes right now on the sun. This is not something you see every single day. We have been seeing an unusual amount of these gigantic coronal holes during solar cycle 25. Our observational records only go back to the 1970s. So unfortunately, we don't have 1,000 years of data or 10,000 years of data as it relates to these features and how often they show up like this in very large size and at a high frequency during solar maximum in the descending phase, which we just now have entered. But regardless, we know that this is unusual. They are well connected to high magnitude earthquake activity. The past 36 hours being perfect example of that. We had the magnitude 6.6 pop off Shetland Islands, south to South America. This is the tip of Antarctica. That was the second strongest earthquake for 2026 at the time. Now we've had a magnitude 6.7 in the North Atlantic on a mid-ocean ridge. And well, it's pretty anomalous to get a earthquake of that magnitude on a mid-ocean ridge. We'll look at the map. We do see sometimes even up to magnitude 7 earthquakes on oceanic spreading centers, but it is not common. We've had now a 6.7, second strongest of this year. And sometimes these mid-ocean ridge spreading center earthquakes kind of cluster in with larger events because you have larger plate movements unfolding. So a lot that is happening right now. I'm going to give you the update, then we'll do a question and answer. So if you have a question that you like to ask, you can wait till that point. Ask it in the general chat. I'll do my best to answer it. I'm going to take a few from the general audience. If you want to make sure your question gets answered, you can attach it to a super thanks, and you can do that anytime during this broadcast because they get put into a separate list. I can then go look at them and I'll answer that question. So those are two options for you as it relates to the question and answer. But before we do that, we are going to first talk about what is happening right now with this solar storm, which I first reported on last night as it was really ramping up. So let's look at our real-time solar wind data. This took me by surprise last night. As you know, if you watched the live stream, I've been watching this build up basically all day, and then all of a sudden it increased dramatically to about 35, 36 nanotesla. This is way stronger than normal. Like a good size solar storm coming in is in that 20 to 25 nanotesla range. You can have actually a lot of geomagnetic activity. This is swings in Earth's magnetic field and the strength, the total strength of it, just going up and down in different component directions, exhibiting a lot of volatility. We can see quite strong geostorms even in that 15 to 20 nanotesla range. So we're talking like a strong storm, 20 to 25, 25 to 30. Once you're over 30 nanotesla, you're in kind of special territory. It's very rare to get storms over 30 nanotesla. They're not happening every week, every month. It's maybe a few times a year during solar maximum and less frequent than that during the descending phase. So this is quite special. Well, we see that after I signed off from the live stream, the G2, G3 storm came in. We first had G2 levels. This is when I was reporting. Then it bumped up to G3 levels. That's a strong geomagnetic storm. So we're looking at our KP index here, a measure of these magnetic field swings on the surface. It goes from 0 to 9. So 0 is perfectly quiet conditions. Earth's magnetic field is just sitting there in stillness in a void, and it's perfectly serene and quiet. Then you go up to 5. That's a minor storm. There's some fluctuations, but it's not crazy. You get to 7. It's a strong storm. The magnetic field is really vibrating, resonating. Then you go 8 and 9, and well, you go from severe to extreme. And we've had those before. We will have them again. This has the potential to go to severe territories, G4 levels, because of the strength of the total magnetic field. Again, it's over 30. It's 34 right now, just spiked up to 38. Let's zoom in here, our 3-day view, so we can really see this. 38 nanotesla is very, very strong. And we're still in a solar wind regime, which isn't super fast, okay? We have a high-speed stream impact coming in as a result of these coronal holes. Again, I can show you right here. So this is effectively a void spot in the solar corona, the outermost atmosphere of the sun, made up of super high energy plasma, millions of degrees Kelvin, right? It's super energetic. Well, when the magnetic field is configured a certain way on the sun, it flows and extends out into space rather than kind of looping back in on itself like we see with these coronal loops here, different parts of the sun, especially where you have sunspots. And as a result, it effectively sweeps all that plasma out into a high-speed stream. At the front of that, you have a wall of plasma called a co-rotating interaction region. And all the high velocity plasma piles up. It's like a traffic jam, builds the density up, creates a bit of a shock wave if that passes over, let's say, a probe, or let's say, our planet or a different planet. And then you get the high-speed stream to follow up behind it. The last time we had this coronal hole high-speed stream impact, about 28 days ago, the solar wind velocity went to 700 kilometers per second. Right now, we are at 500. So we are not yet in that high-speed stream, though the solar wind density is now just starting to drop. I expect that to come in probably in the next 8 hours. Okay? But this solar wind magnetic field strength going to 39 is very, very powerful. Now it's 34. We see that the red line, this is the vertical component of the magnetic field. We check the polarity of that because it determines how well connected the solar wind is to Earth's magnetic field. When it's strongly positive, this energy is coming in the magnetotail of our planet rather than kind of ejecting in at the front. When it's strongly negative, like we see here in these light purple shaded boxes, then you have a good connection, and that really triggers these geostorms. So we see here, we had a few periods where it was really connecting. That's what drove that G3 storm. Now Earth's magnetic field is conditioned. It is ready to exhibit more of this volatility now, because it takes a little bit of time to warm up. It's all warmed up now. So if this is to all of a sudden flip back negative, go southward like we see here, and do it for a long duration, let's say 4, 6, 8 hours, we could definitely be in a G3, G4 storm in no time if this solar wind strength stays over 30. That's kind of the rough range I'll give it. I mean, it could even happen at a lower level because of this preconditioning, and especially this velocity of the solar wind kicks up. But in general, if it's over 30 and we get a long duration southward component connection, like for example, this is only going from, let's say, 20 to 2200 UTC. It's only 2 hours. Then we kind of broke off, and then we had about another hour there, right? That's only 3 hours total in like a 4-hour time span. If we have 6 hours of this, 7, 8 hours of this, which is possible, we could really be cooking. So we are in the midst right now of a very strong solar storm. Last time we saw a storm like this was back in January. That was a near Carrington level impact, anomalously strong. No one except perhaps me was expecting it to be as strong as it was. And even then, I did not expect the solar wind magnetic field strength to go to 90 nanotesla, which is Carrington level. There are other characteristics to it that were close to Carrington level or not exactly Carrington level. But if you have a magnetic field strength of 90 nanotesla, that is historic. We had that back in January, about the 17th, 18th, 19th. No one was forecasting that. Though I knew that something big was coming, and we talked about that. I also knew that this was going to be stronger than expected based off of a variety of factors, the convergence of equinox, the new moon, right? We had those two plasma filaments, the two coronal mass ejections. We had that co-rotating interaction region, the high-speed stream, all that combined together. The fact that we right now have Saturn cazimi occurring, we have Neptune cazimi occurring. When we get these sort of planetary alignments, we have the Earth, the Sun, Saturn and Neptune exactly in a line right now. When you have that happen, well, these things are much stronger than normal. So we're seeing it right now in real time. Now let's talk about our earthquakes, because we just had a big magnitude 6.7 pop off mid-Atlantic ridge. We see that right there. This is very interesting. I've talked before just a little bit about how we sometimes see earthquakes in zones that are kind of reflective of geopolitical tension. And I would say this is another good example of that, because there's a lot of geopolitical tension right now between the United States and Europe for a variety of reasons. I mean, Greenland's one reason, the conflict in Iran is another one, trade and tariffs, there's a whole bunch of stuff. This is not a small earthquake, especially for a mid-ocean ridge. This is quite large. And it just popped off there. We see that 12:16 universal time, depth of 10 kilometers. That's the default value that they give earthquakes if they can't calculate the depth. Though in general, a lot of earthquakes do occur roughly in that 10-kilometer zone. So it's hard to know whether it's the default value or whether that's the depth that it actually ruptured at. But considering we don't have much seismic coverage in this area, that might just be the default value. This is the second strongest earthquake now in 2026. Yesterday, it was the 6.6 that was the second strongest. Well, it's already been eclipsed now by this 6.7. So that is a big one. No tsunami from that. We usually don't get tsunamis from a mid-ocean ridge earthquake. Typically, you're actually not going to get a tsunami from anything under a magnitude 7.5. It depends on the type of earthquake, like the fault boundary. If it's a strike-slip fault like this, you're not going to get one. You need significant rupturing along like a vertical plane. All right? So that is something that's important. But this is a big earthquake. Thankfully, no tsunami. And it's part of this larger sequence. Let's zoom out here to our 7-day view. And we're going to look at all earthquakes, 4.57 days. Stack them, largest magnitude first. Here are the three largest earthquakes for the past week. Actually, the three largest earthquakes going all the way back to the 13th of March when we had a 6.3 in Chile, all happening in the past 36 hours. 6.6, South Shetland Islands, that's right here, Antarctica. 6.1, Vanuatu, that's right there. 6.7, Mid-Atlantic Ridge, boom, 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 shakalaka, all right as this solar storm impact was coming in or we were in it. And most importantly, I really think that this is the key, as this gigantic coronal hole was on the Earth-facing side of the sun, center, now geo-effective. The bigger they are, the more surface area they take up on the sun when they are in this central position, especially close to the equator. That just is so well correlated with big earthquakes. So the biggest earthquake of 2026, magnitude 7, island of Borneo, that was when this coronal hole on its last rotation was exactly where we see it right now. That was on the 22nd of February. So the three biggest earthquakes of this year is now perfectly lined up with this coronal hole. First one, 22nd of February, last rotation of this, it was right in the central geoeffective position, and now one solar rotation later, boom, boom, second and third largest in rapid succession within about 36 hours of each other. So this is significant. This seismic energy propagated across the United States and also Europe, that we don't have that map, but we see these seismic waves first hitting the East Coast and then traveling west like this. So this data visualization is linked in the video description. All the data and products I use are linked in the video description if you want to check them out. The purpose of these videos is not only to give you an update as to what is happening, but also to educate you so you can look at this yourself, learn a little bit, talk to other people about this intelligently. That is one of the main prerogatives of this channel. I research into this stuff, and then I do these videos as a way for me to kind of cement and just condense what I've learned down and format that in my brain, present that all to you. It's an excellent mechanism of study, and I want people to be empowered through education. So this is linked in the video description. I also post these sort of updates on my X account. That's at Stefan Burns Geo. If there's stuff that you want to see in between my videos, and there's like a lot of things happening at once, that's the place to go, just because that format is really conducive for posting quick updates. But we see here the P, the S, and the surface waves propagating across North America. Of course, it also went down across South America. This also, of course, went across Europe, Africa. The entire Earth is going to be resonating and vibrating as a result of earthquake like that, because it's a big earthquake, a 6.7. Now, it's not going to last for 20 hours or something. You need like a big magnitude 8 or 9 earthquake for the Earth to just be vibrating for like a day plus. Like the biggest earthquakes will cause the Earth to just rumble for a long time. I'm talking hours, dozens of hours. But a big 6.7 like this, you'll see that it takes some time for that energy to go across. Here we look and we see it's now 25 minutes, 30 minutes after the earthquake, so on and so forth. So for a few hours at least, the Earth is shaking as a result of this earthquake. 6.7 is not common. We can look at our data for it right here. Here we see all the earthquakes going back to January 1st, 1980, magnitude 6.5 and greater. Because I want to show you these mid-ocean ridge earthquakes. Now, of course, we see a bunch of earthquakes here. Some of them are huge. If we look at largest magnitude, 9.1, 9.1, 8.8, whole bunch of big stuff, okay? But we are going to switch this to, we'll keep it largest magnitude actually, but we're going to zoom in. Here is the Atlantic Ocean. Let's switch this though to only on the map. And if we punch in right here, we see, and let me turn myself off really quick. We see these earthquakes, okay? The strongest, 7.1, 7.1, 7.0, 7.0. These are not common though. I mean, we see a good string of them here, but again, this is 46 years of data. And we see at the bottom here, it's going to be 6.5 because that's the lower limit for the earthquake magnitude. But during this entire time frame, we see 30 earthquakes, magnitude 6.5 or greater, along this part of the mid-ocean ridge in the Atlantic Ocean. And so we have 46 years, only 30. We get about one every 1.5 years or so. So this is a significant earthquake that we just had. And if we go up a little bit, we see its location right here. So it's isolated on its own. During this time frame, at least 1980, we don't see any big earthquakes, magnitude 6.5 or greater, along this entire stretch. We see here 6.7 near the Azores, and then if we go up, we see some high magnitude 6 and a 7 quake, 7.1 right there, south of Iceland. But we see that there's a lot of activity along this more horizontal stretch of this mid-ocean ridge where there's a lot of transform faults. And then where it's simply just a spreading center, we don't get that much. So that's a key thing to know. If we punch in here, we see it's on that transform section. And here's where the plate is actually spreading apart like this. So you have this convective force coming up from the deep earth going like this, causing the plates to move apart because new plate is being created, right? Rock is actually being created. This would be like pillow basalts and other different types of rock. If deeper parts of the oceanic crust, you can get gabbro and stuff if it cools down, but typically where it's coming up, you'll get like a lot of pillow basalts because of just the mechanisms of how it cools in the ocean and more. So this is a pretty anomalous quake, big 6.7, and it's definitely one to be mindful of, especially when you pair it also with this 6.6 here, South Shetland Islands, yesterday on the 20th on the equinox, and then this 6.1 Vanuatu right there. You'll notice that they're all oceanic quakes, okay? We have there Vanuatu, South Shetland Islands, and Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Well, the sun right now just crossed over the vernal equinox point, right where Saturn and Neptune are, and back on the 20th of February, 2 days before that magnitude 7 quake in Borneo, by the way, right? That one being a little bit more over here. We don't see it on the map, but that one being right there. That occurred in the constellation of Pisces, which is the ocean. And now as the sun reaches that point where they did their conjunction, that same exact point in the sky, we get 3 big earthquakes in the ocean. Not on land. Now 70% of the earth is ocean. Still, you would think that maybe you get a big shaker somewhere to hit elsewhere, but we're not. So this is quite significant. If we also look here at Europe, we will see that there's been quite a bit of activity in the Mediterranean, specifically Greece and Italy. And let's actually look at our 30-day map here to get a real sense of this, because there's been more than normal. We had the strongest earthquake in 10 years to strike Italy right there. I lived through it, didn't feel it. Almost no one did because it was super deep, 378 kilometers down, but the strongest earthquake to strike Italy in 10 years. And then today we just had a 5.2. Not common to get magnitude 5s. I mean, Italy gets some earthquakes, but it's not like you're seeing a magnitude 5 hit Italy every single day. We're also seeing magnitude 5 earthquakes here in Greece. So a whole cluster of earthquakes up here, magnitude 5, 5.1, some magnitude 4s. We get a magnitude 5.1 right there. Also, Turkey's been seeing some activity. North Anatolia Fault right here, 5.3. So there's been a definite increase in activity in the Mediterranean, and that is a zone to watch more, because as these other plates continue to shift, right, this indicating a big shift for the, what is this, the Australian plate, right, the Australian continent, a big shift here in between the North American and African plate with this 6.7, and then also a big shift here with the South Pacific plate and the Australasian plate with Vanuatu, right? These sort of oceanic plates moving are forcing the others to also accommodate new stress, and eventually they will rupture. So it's worth paying attention to this. In the Mediterranean, the antipode for that is roughly Hawaii or so. It's actually a little bit to the north. So the biggest plate on the globe, the Pacific plate, been seeing huge amounts of volcanic activity on the big island of Hawaii, and we're seeing some just force pushing up on the Mediterranean, which is very, very interesting. So both sides of that axis, with Hawaii in the mantle plume going all the way from the core mantle boundary, expressing at the Hawaiian Islands, and then in the Mediterranean where you have Campi Flegrei supervolcano, that magnitude 6 occurring directly underneath it. Also Mount Vesuvius, a very big volcano in Naples. Well, there's some interesting dynamics here. So it's not just simply plates sliding past each other. There's also this flow of energy and magma, electric currents, and more that's being expressed through these earthquakes. These earthquakes are really just an observational sign that some of these other forces are at play. So we have this big solar storm impact, and then at the exact same time with this coronal hole right there, and as the magnetic field is just going totally bonkers, we have 3 big earthquakes, 2 of them being the 3rd and 2nd largest of this year. I mean, you just put all the data in front of you. It just tells you really obviously that the sun influences the earth geophysically, obviously with the light and the heat and climate and more, but in some of these other ways that people are just belligerent in accepting. and they deny it. Oh, there's no connection between the sun and earthquakes. Well, just like pay attention a little bit and you'll see it. It's really awesome. I mean, I don't get it. All the ancient cultures worshiped the sun for thousands and thousands of years. And if you look at the history of all that, you know that they were very smart as it relates to an understanding as it relates to celestial mechanics, because they built these megalithic temples all around the world that are perfectly aligned with the solstice and equinoxes. Stonehenge, you can use that as a eclipse calculator. So they're able to calculate when they would see an eclipse based off of having certain post holes, and they can move markers around, like very complex stuff. Calculating eclipses is not easy, but they built basically a giant calculator to do it. And you ask, like, you take 100 people from the street and say, hey, create an eclipse calculator, not going to happen. You take an entire city of people, and maybe you're lucky if you can get one made without the use of technology, right? Like, yeah, I'm sure you can get some smart engineers and they can type in on an AI program and figure it out. But you take all that away, revert it back to a stage like the ancients had, and good luck getting Chicago to make Stonehenge, all right? If that tells you something. I mean, maybe I love Chicago, they're great people, but I would just be doubtful that honestly really too many people could do it. I'm not sure how much help I could be, and I've studied this stuff. I'm not maybe the ultimate mathematician or anything, certainly not. But the point is that's difficult. This is difficult. They had ultra precise understandings of the length of day, so their calendars were accurate in a way that we actually lost that knowledge for 1,000 years during the medieval period, the Dark Ages. After the collapse of Rome, all of a sudden we forgot that you get an extra day every 124 years or so, whereas we have normally a leap year, right? Everyone knows a leap year every 4 years. Well, it's not just 365.25 days per year, it's 365.2419 something. So you need that extra 124 year accounting to keep your calendars accurate over the course of 1,000 years. That's like 9, 10 years or so. So our calendars got really off during the Dark Ages because they didn't understand this stuff. The ancients did. They had these monuments which allowed them to have very precise calendars. The ancient Egyptians knew this. The Sumerians, going even further back. So there's something to all this, and it's not something to just, if you don't know it, you may ignore it, but it's pretty important stuff. They obviously saw these sort of geomagnetic storms as well. You wonder what they may have thought of these things. Certainly they experienced some. Here we see our KP index. So we see that we've had this G3 storm right here spiking to 7.33. It's actually a G3 plus storm. So a big storm, and we see that our HP 30 index, so a 30-minute measure, a very high resolution look, actually got to a G4 level at a G4 minus at 7.667. So only 30 minutes, we really spiked up there. Again, if we get a long duration connection with the solar wind, we are going to get G4 levels, but it has to probably be 4-6 hours or so. If the solar wind strength stays over 30 and the solar wind velocity comes in maybe a little bit faster, we could do it. But right now we are at levels of G2 to G3, which is 6 or 7. We're right in that zone. Now, if we look at this amazing video here, we can see what the aurora is like. So we have a picture of the aurora. I think this is from Poland, but I could be wrong. It's definitely Europe. And we see the aurora pulsing right before sunrise. There the sun comes up. This is Europe, and then boom. But look at the colors. The green is excited oxygen, and the purples and blue is excited ionized nitrogen. So this is, when you start to see the purples and the blues with the nitrogen, you know you have a pretty significant solar storm. We had aurora sightings down in New Mexico, down to Kansas, and that was just with the initial impact. We could be about to really pick up. That is certainly possible. Now, something else to keep in mind is that we do have some pretty intense weather right now. We talked about this yesterday a little bit. We talked about the the Category 5 hurricane that slammed into Australia, little cyclone, tropical cyclone Narelli. It weakened to Category 2. We'll see if it re-strengthens. We have a huge heat wave right now, a massive heat dome hitting basically the United States. Canada is the only spot on the globe right now that's not experiencing temperatures above normal, like anomalous temperatures, which is pretty wild. We'll look at that. I'll pull it up. But here we see the uppermost part of our atmosphere in the jet stream, and we are having a polar vortex collapse as we speak right now. So normally there's this nice vortex like this, and then when it collapses, it splits apart into two different lobes. We're looking at I think it's our 70 hectopascal, our 70 hectopascal layer. Typically you look at 50, but we get a sense of the polar vortex by looking at our 70 and our 250. So 70 really shows it nicely though. It's that right zone where you see the polar vortex is collapsing. That is going to be bringing more weather volatility to the United States towards Europe. And so this big heat wave right now, expect maybe there to be a sudden shift and probably some more cold temperatures as this mass of cold air sweeps down from the Arctic and hits into both North America and also Europe. Let's look at these heat anomalies. It's pretty cool. Climate Reanalyzer is the place to go. They have a whole bunch of different maps you can look at. For example, we can see the 250 hectopascal jet stream, 550, right? You get a sense here. Let's look at our 2-meter temperature anomaly. We see the massive temperature anomalies that the United States is experiencing right now. Things are really hot there. Again, I just get this sense that sometimes the Earth literally, we're all resonating at one and the same. So what's happening with the people, with the country, right, is also what's happening effectively with the Earth energetically and herself and weather and geophysics and more. So, you know, there's this madness right now with what the United States is doing, and well, we're seeing that literally reflected, it becoming a pretty hellish place in March for a lot of people. Heat records broken for March all across the southeast. 110-degree temperatures in March, even in astronomical winter before the equinox. I mean, just crazy stuff. Canada is like the one spot on the globe that's basically cold. We can look here, maybe a little bit of Siberia too, but most of the globe is heated up, especially in the northern hemisphere. Some spots maybe a little cooler than normal, but pretty wild stuff right now. So that is what's happening right now with this temperature. And I think we're just going to be seeing, as I've talked about many times, just increased volatility in our weather as we go forward. The overall climate is warming up, but that does not mean that you're never going to have snow again, you're never going to have blizzards again, you're never going to have cold snaps and new cold records. Like, almost more important, I would say, than the trajectory of climate change, which is that the Earth overall is getting warmer from all these different inputs, the sun, what we're doing, everything, right? You just have more volatility with our weather. Overall, the Earth is becoming more of a storm planet. As the Earth warms up, it holds on to more water vapor. That's a greenhouse gas, actually like one of the strongest greenhouse gases. So every degree up, you have 7% more water in the atmosphere. You have more electromagnetism and energy in the atmosphere. You have more lightning strikes. You have stronger Schumann resonances, stronger telluric currents flowing through the Earth as a result. The entire system gets supercharged. So as we go forward in this century, things are going to get more and more intense. That is my forecast, at least. We'll see what's happening, but the current trajectory is fully supportive of that. Now, what happens in the future actually remains to be seen. Maybe things turn around, or some big shift, or a huge volcanic eruption, and we get 10 years of cooling due to a volcanic winter. Like, all these things are possible. But as of right now, this is what's happening. We could have a grand solar minimum. That could help bring temperatures down, because we see that during grand solar minimums, there seems to be a connection with lower global temperatures, and that makes sense. So we don't know the next 70 years, the rest of the century, but the trajectory right now is more volatility with our weather, and just overall more energy in the system. More energy that we experience as well, because we are all bathed within this. You know, our entire energetic environment around us affects us very intimately, collectively, individually, societally, and more. So pretty intense stuff happening right now. We'll go back here to our real-time solar wind. Let's just do a quick refresh on this to see where it's at. I think it's up to date, but let's just see. And then we'll get into our question and answer. So yeah, solar wind strength right now at 30, and polarity is positive, only at 5 nanotesla. If this continues to go negative and go south and negative, then that could be the beginning of this connection that takes us back to G2, G3, even potentially G4 levels. Solar wind velocity is still at 500 kilometers per second. It's expected to go to above 600 kilometers per second in the next 12 to 24 hours. So I will be keeping you up to date on all this if you subscribe to the channel. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Again, your geo bro, your cosmic bro, your space bro, your sun bro, all the bros. I wear the hats. I constantly keep you guys up to date on this. I think that's important. A lot of other people, or just in general, society isn't, right? It's not like you learn about this stuff with the news, even though these are some of the biggest forces affecting our planet. So you wonder why. You wonder why it takes me, just an independent person with an interest in this, to bring this to the masses. Certainly there are other people doing it too, but this is one of the largest channels, if not the largest channel on this topic, on these topics. So I'm very grateful to all of you who support me with that, and for your interest and more. So let's get into our question and answer. I'll take some questions from the general chat, and then I will address the questions that popped in through the super thanks. And we had some big super thanks that came in from Roxy. Thank you so much for the very generous super thanks. That is awesome. You're a longtime supporter. Love to see it. Love to see you here. Thank you so much. A question here from Awakening with Amrit. Any resource suggestions for someone wanting to learn about quantum mechanics? Thanks for all you do and the amazing herbal coffee. Much love to my brother. Well, yeah, I would say there's a lot out there. There's a lot of conflicting ideas as it relates to quantum mechanics and quantum physics and more. A good place to start is honestly with some history. So I read an autobiography of Einstein, and that helps give you a sense of the progression of science and physics going into the quantum realm at the turn of the 20th century and then going forward through that. I don't remember the author of that, but because I'm sure there's quite a few biographies of Einstein, but it was like one of the main biography authors. So, you know, if you read it, you'll probably learn it. But I just simply don't remember the author's name. That'd be a good place to start. And then I personally really like the work of David Bohm. So Science, Order, Creativity is a great book to get into for that. He goes into his ideas as to quantum mechanics, and they really resonate. Some people didn't take them too seriously. He was a colleague of Einstein, but as we've moved forward in time since he wrote that book and others and laid out his ideas, more evidence has basically piled up in his favor. So I think he was just ahead of the time. So Science, Order, and Creativity by David Bohm would be a good place to start. Thank you for your very generous super thanks, Amrit, and I'm wishing you the best. Also, a gigantic super thanks from Julie. That is awesome. Thank you so much for not only that, but also for being here, being part of this community, for sharing your abundance with the world. That is much appreciated. Another gigantic super thanks from Solar Independent Utility Systems. That is awesome. Same to you, of course. Could not do this without the support of people and groups like everyone here supporting. Another one from Julie with a question. How does a geomagnetic storm affect people's mood and behaviors? I was with a friend from out of town yesterday. Her whole vibe changed during the storm like a werewolf. I'm not sure I know what GM means. Question 2, how do geomagnetic storms affect tech? Yeah, so in general, you're just looking at more energy volatility. It depends on the systems that you have built in, your own mental wiring, your physical wiring. So for example, I know that when a solar storm impact's coming in, or even like some big solar flares, I find myself stronger. Like if I'm at the gym, I find myself lifting more weight, having better endurance. There's some just like increased energy aspect that like really works for me. So I did a workout yesterday, and it was like a calisthenics park. I was doing pull-ups and stuff. They have these stones there. So I was like lifting these stones overhead. That's a lot of fun. I love to do that. But I was surprised that I got this one really big one up overhead. So I mention that because it works with your energy systems. Now, continuing the example, I'm going to the gym. I'm training those pathways. So there's a coherent and natural beneficial outlet for it. If you're not doing that, even as simple as just making sure you're going for a walk almost every single day or every single day, getting your steps in, it's going to manifest in other ways. It may manifest mentally. You know, I can only speak for myself. I also find that during these storms, I'm like really sharp, fast. I can maybe make a few more mistakes, but in general, things are just like supercharged. But if you don't have good mental systems built, then it can kind of be erratic, and maybe you have more of an emotional connection. Your emotions lash out more. Everyone's very, very different. So yeah, it can really change people. But the key is if you have, if you're eating a good diet, drinking good water, like spring water, and you're moving your body, you're grounding, you're going to be just fine. If you're not doing those things, then you may be surprised by the energy manifest, especially because it's not just how it's interacting with you, your biofield, your heart, your brain, your cells, right? It's also how it's interacting with your microbiome. Bacteria are really sensitive to electromagnetic fields. Viruses, parasites are very sensitive to these electromagnetic fields. So if you don't have a microbiome that's maybe as optimized as it could be, kind of more sympathetic and symbiotic, then maybe all of a sudden these bacteria start pumping out more toxins and you start to feel the fatigue and the pain and the inflammation, all these things. So there's a lot to be mindful of there, and that's why diet's so key. Keep in mind, you're eating, it takes a long time for food to transit through. So basically, it's not just you eat a meal and then it comes out. It's like there's a continuous movement of food, bacteria, and more flowing through your body. So what's the makeup of that river, you could say? This is all very important as it relates to these sort of solar storm impacts and solar flares, and heliobiology is the field that you could research into. And how does it affect tech? Well, that's pretty simple. Sometimes we see these big influences on technology. Let's look at our geomagnetic storm scale impact graphic for that. I'm going to turn off your question here. We see a G1 storm all the way to G5 storm here, okay? So with a G1 storm, you can get weak power grid fluctuations, minor impacts on satellites. Migratory birds may be like, hey, what the heck is happening, right? Because they use the magnetic field. Aurora is common at high latitudes. You go to G2, transformer damage is possible if it's a long storm like this one is, okay? Corrective actions to spacecraft orientation may be required. Aurora can be seen as low as New York and Idaho. Well, we had a G3 storm. Aurora may be seen as low as Illinois and Oregon, actually down to New Mexico and Kansas. Because again, it was more like kind of on this boundary at times. So that's when those photos, I'm sure, were taken. Power system voltage corrections may be required. We had a subscriber, or at least a viewer yesterday. They do this sort of work and they got that alert that a G3 storm was coming in. So, mad shout out to all the hardworking people that keep our power grids running. Like, they're in the background doing the hard work. Some of them are up on those towers, like, I don't know how high up, but I would not want to be them. So God bless all those people. They are doing overtime when these storms come in. And then satellite and radio communication can really get affected by this. G4 storm, G5 storm, here's where it starts to get really serious, okay? So widespread voltage control problems with the power grid, high frequency radio, sporadic satellite navigation like GPS can be degraded for hours. Low frequency radio navigation issues are very, very common, and Aurora moves even further south. And then a G5 storm, extreme storm, that is where you start to worry. We've had G5 storms, we've ridden through them, but you start to go G5 and even up to like a Carrington level impact, and that's when you should really start to pay attention, because blackouts, complete collapse of power grids is possible. Navigation systems may be out for hours or days. Again, this is like GPS. Aurora may be seen as low as Florida and southern Texas. So a good example of some of the real world implications of this is the G5 storm that we had back in May 12th, 10th to the 12th of 2025. This is the Gannon storm, the Mother's Day storm of 2024. The biggest solar storm impact and geomagnetic storm that we've had in this solar cycle 25 and during the maximum, okay? Well, The GPS was so erratic then. It was right in May when farmers are planting their crops, right? That there was huge issues with that. And these tractors now are all guided by GPS. So in Europe and the United States, there was some pretty big problems with the agricultural industry as it relates to that G5 storm. And so thankfully, you know, it wasn't stronger and knocked out like big power grids or anything, but that certainly is possible at times. So yeah, thank you to those really big super thanks that came in. Now let me get to some of the questions from the general chat, then we'll go back to the other super thanks. Hope that answers your questions. And just going to wait for some questions to roll in. And Clip Dash asking, shall we expect a huge solar storm in 2 weeks due to an incoming comet? Will that affect the technology and the ongoing war? That would be reference, I'm sure, to what I just talked about, my latest video, my clips video, which is actually a clip from yesterday's live stream, talking about the sunspots on the far side of the sun and the sun grazer comet that we have coming in, C2026 A1 maps on April 4th. We're gonna have a lot of sunspots on the Earth-facing side, stretch across the entire sun around April 4th, right when that comet comes in, and perhaps we see some disruptions and some solar storms get launched, more activity. I would think that's more likely. That's my, you could say, base case. If I had to issue a forecast, I'd say there's a much higher likelihood because of that comet getting so close to the sun, being a sun grazer with all those sunspots going to be Earth-facing, it's a much higher likely possibility of there being some significant solar activity, solar flares, and coronal mass ejections in the beginning of April, specifically around April 3rd to the 5th. So yeah, absolutely. Will it affect technology and ongoing war? Well, if you get a really big storm, all these, you know, a lot of these missiles are guided by GPS. You get a G5 storm, baby, things could get wild, okay? And there's certainly a lot of stuff happening with this war in Iran and now the entire Middle East that is not what they're saying it is, okay? To keep it really simple. So yeah, that's, all of April is looking really critical because we have two big comets, and comets are heralds of change. We've known this for thousands of years, okay? You know, the modern day astronomers will tell you that there's nothing about comets which are omens, they don't signal anything. I don't know, let's be real. I trust like thousands of years of data and history rather than just like, you know, a couple nerded out astronomers who are totally disconnected from universe and God, personally. So, when I look at comets, and they're like big comets, significant comets, bright comets, visible eye comets coming in, both of them in April, April's looking like it's going to be a big month. I think it's going to be a really big month. Not only, you know, in terms of the geophysics and solar activity, but just in terms of world events. April, May, looking really big. But really April, crazy planetary geometry around 420. So yeah, I mean, I'll be here with you every step of the way, hopefully. Every day I give my thanks for being here for another. There's no guarantees, but I'm sure I'll be here to guide you through it as best I can, and thanks for your support. And Pascal is asking, can the precise atomic satellite clocks have distortions from a G4 or G5 storm? Maybe it's exactly enough to create the missing 128-year cycle of 1 week. Yeah, in general, if you have just a lot of solar flux and plasma and more, it's affecting these systems. Now, these atomic clocks operate a little differently. You could get some sort of ion, a particle, to hit it and interact with it and maybe knock it offline or something. But just in general, it's more about affecting the signal that is connecting our ground systems with our systems in space. So it's not necessarily affecting clocks so much, I would think. But I don't know precisely, but certainly you're going to get more probabilistic interactions with a big solar storm impact. So yeah, that could affect things. As it relates to that 128-year thing, that's something totally different. So that's not something you have to worry about. And one question here from Engineering Adjacent, not to be political, but could 5,000-pound bombs be adding energy to the mix or redirecting? So as it relates to the geostorm, and the solar storm impact, you know, these are kind of different things. The biggest connection that I personally see there is how this heightened energy then will affect people. Because again, everyone has their different pathways that they've developed, right? Their brain, their body, and more, their spirit, soul. So it's more of an indirect method, but you get someone acting a little crazier and then, they're the ones that have the ability to press the button. That's not a good thing, okay? We have to think of these things. We really need to think of these things. Like, we need world leaders who not only are aware of this, but also have like done the spiritual work and they're not fucking crazy. But then as it more relates to your question, could these bombs be adding energy to the mix? Just in general, this is something that I don't know why I just never see people talk about this. It just blows my mind. You have this gigantic bomb, okay, which has this massive amount of energy that's sequestered, okay? Because you can have the bomb sitting in a warehouse, right, and it's not exploding. It's just chilling there. It's room temperature. But if you were able to turn it on, get that bad boy to explode, the entire warehouse is gone. Huge shock wave, heat blast, everything. That's all energy, folks. You have potential energy converted into thermal energy because of chemical processes or nuclear processes, whatever. So yeah, when you're dropping more bombs, you're releasing a lot of energy into the environment. And we're dropping these bombs, well, I don't want to say we, some of the people on this planet are dropping bombs on oil fields, setting that on fire, releasing that energy, which is all sequestered geologically into our environment. So yeah, this is something I've talked about before. I don't know why people don't talk about this as it relates to global climate or more. Every single car has an internal combustion engine, except for the electric ones, and they're still relying on energy from something, right? An internal combustion engine. You put your hand on the hood of your car after you drove an hour and it is hot. It's releasing energy. You're taking gasoline, which is sequestered energy, hydrocarbons, super sequestered, and then lighting that on fire, basically. So you have billions of cars, and then of course you add in industry, which is like huge. You add in these gigantic ships that are going across the oceans. They're burning bunker fuel. Like, we have so much energy that's being released that was originally sequestered geologically, and we wonder why the planet's warming up. It's not just CO2. It's not just some of these other greenhouse gases. They're not helping, by the way, okay? Like, maybe plants like them, and that's cool, but the plant growth is not outweighing the input to the greenhouse effect. Water vapor, all these hydrocarbons are also releasing water that was sequestered now into our environment, into the active hydrological cycle. The oceans have absorbed a massive amount of heat. Almost all the heat that's been released has been absorbed by the oceans, okay? And, well, they can't do it forever, baby. So it's not just carbon, it's not just the sun, it's also simply just an energy equation, because not all this energy radiates out to space as long wave radiation, like thermal radiation, infrared. Not all of it goes out. There's an energy imbalance there. We've been detecting that with satellites now for decades. So yeah, and then you add in the greenhouse effect and other things. This is why the planet's heating up. It's multifactorial, all of them are combining, and a lot of it is driven by human activities. The sun is still the big player. The earth is still the big player. One massive volcanic eruption, boom, we're gonna have some global cooling for a bit. But we are really altering the system now ourselves. And so it's very important to be mindful of that. Okay, I'm gonna get back to the super thanks questions. So there have been some more that have come in. Let me address these. The first one that came in actually from Anthony here. Could this be the reason why Australia's weather has gone crazy? I can't sleep properly too. Could this be the reason? Certainly, your sleep is affected during these sort of geostorms. Just in general, it's going to be a little harder to sleep. Some people, they actually get great sleep because the individual factors are much more important than the solar or geomagnetic factors on any given day. And so if you've been like really tired, and then let's say you even take like a CBD gummy, even if there's a geostorm, you may get the best night of sleep because your body just like needs it. But these sort of things typically don't help sleep, but it may not be the most important factor in the equation for you or for someone else. As it relates to Australia's weather, yeah, this isn't helping, right? Again, these things just make weather more volatile, especially with established systems. If you have a big cyclone off the coast, well, that's going to just absorb this energy basically. And so we see observationally rapid intensifications of cyclones during geostorms and the creation of them and things of this nature. We see tornado outbreaks after these sort of solar storm impacts, especially the coronal hole high-speed stream impact. So, look to the United States with the heat, the crazy heat dome and the high temperatures. Look to the U.S. over the next 2 weeks for tornado outbreaks. Sorry to say, but I would not be surprised if we start to get some big tornado outbreaks in the last part of March going forward. So I hope that answers your question. And a question from Graham here. With all this activity and the 2 comets coming in, do you believe the chance of a megaquake or supervolcano eruption are dramatically heightened? I wouldn't say dramatically. And yeah, as it relates to the comets, I'm still kind of on the fence as it relates to them having an influence on quakes. We see some connections, but also we've been tracking this now quite a bit in 2025, and we didn't see maybe some of the connections that we thought we would, but we still saw quite a lot of activity. So more so, and then also volcanoes. I wouldn't really venture and say that there's like 100% a connection between comets, quakes, and volcanoes. But I think there's probably something there, like a little bit, but I don't think it's probably crazy. Just maybe if something's at the edge, it could tip it over, but that's really kind of where I am right now. But in terms of these solar storm impacts and these sort of geofactors, yeah, that has a lot more data, and I think it's a bigger factor too. It's it has more weight to it if we were like actually using this and creating a model out of this so we can make predictions or whatever. So dramatically heightened, no, but heightened in April, just in general now because of this solar storm impact and these other things, yeah. I wouldn't bet the house on a megaquake or a supervolcano eruption to occur. In general, those are pretty low likelihood events. Eventually they happen, but I wouldn't be betting on Polymarket or something for it. Nor do I want to really be supporting that like manifestation. So no, dramatically heightened, no, but like a little bit, yeah, probably like a teensy weensy bit higher than normal. If all of a sudden that changes like dramatically, I'll let you know. Thank you, Beth, for the super thanks. That is much appreciated. And Marius, thank you for the super thanks. Dziękuję. Dzień dobry. And we have a super thanks here from Bob LeBlanc. Blah, 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 blahs. I appreciate your big picture thinking, tying it all together. Finally, someone who makes me not feel so alone. Well, you are welcome, and you have community here, so always happy to be here for you and for everyone else as we all are. So thank you so much. David Holland, thank you for the super sticker. Node Nelly, thank you for the super thanks. Saying pi is a finite number. Contact us. That's for the mathematicians. I'll leave that to them, but thank you for the super thanks. Stacy, thanks for being a member for a month. Can you explain why we're now out of solar maximum? We're still having geostorms. You get a lot of solar activity during the descending phase. Right at the boundary of solar maximum descending phase. So, we're right there. You could lead me over to solar maximum, you could lead me over to descending phase. Basically, we're more like on the cusp of the two. That's where we are. But it's until you get to solar minimum that things really start to ramp down. You get a lot of geostorms during solar, during the solar descending phase. Let me show you the data for that. We have some for the past few solar cycles right here. So I can show you this very clearly. This is across a few solar cycles going from 1957 to 2018, okay? So that's solar cycle 19 all the way through solar cycle 24. We see not that many big geostorms in the ascending phase. We're measuring this by the DST index being less than or equal to negative 250 nanotesla, okay? And I'm going to have to turn off your question here. We see that, and here we see that maximum DST. So we don't get that many during the ascending phase when solar activity is ramping up. We basically get none during the minimum phase. For this data set, we just have one right there, and it wasn't crazy, crazy strong, right? Like this one right there is 1989, Quebec. We see most of them in the maximum phase. We see a lot there during the descending phase, probably about an equal amount, going into about 3/5 through the descending phase. So we got a lot of activity left, but there will be less and less sunspots, less solar flux pushing out, but sometimes the biggest sunspots actually come out during the descending phase. So we have all this happening basically for the next few years. So we got a lot of activity up ahead. And new light entanglement, thanks. We had twin 4.1 quakes within 2 minutes of each other. Portugal, also a cluster of quakes in south coast of Portugal and Spain. Now this 6.7. I'm not sure if that's going to show up on my map here. Let's see. I see the 4.7 here, but that was on the 17th. I'm just looking at the USGS map. Though if I probably looked at the seismic data for like Portugal specifically, it would pop up. But so thank you for that report on that. Thank you for the super thanks. Brent Holmes, thank you for everything you do. Have you read or listened to the raw contact material teaching the law of one? I think you may experience profound resonance with this great work. Wanderers often do. No, that sounds new to me, though I know a little bit, about the law of one, but I will look into that. Thank you so much for the super thanks. And James McCastile, any thoughts, updates on the Earth interacting with material ejected off from 3I Atlas, a window you mentioned a few weeks ago, Center March 25th to April 5th. Well, we've been having a lot of fireballs come in. These are meteorites that are bright enough to be seen during the day. So maybe this is material from 3I Atlas. We need some proper like geochemistry analysis of these fragments from Germany and from Ohio, because they kind of look the same. Just looking at the photos, they look similar. So if they come back similar, and they come back with chemical signatures similar to what we observed with 3I Atlas in terms of the spectroscopy, then, well, okay, maybe it is. So I don't know. We just simply need more data for this, but based off of the orbit of 3I Atlas and the jetting and all this stuff, it's certainly a possibility you just can't immediately dismiss, which some people are doing. They're like, oh, you're crazy for thinking this. Like, come on, folks. We don't know everything in the world. So it's certainly a possibility. What's the percentage? I don't know. Like, how likely is that going to be a thing? Like, solar physics and plasma physics is not completely written. This is a whole new field of exploration, right? Anyone that wants to make a mark on the world, if they're like a 15-year-old kid and they start to really research into plasma physics and they become like a world-renowned plasma guy, right? They're going to like move mountains. So the science is out and we don't know everything. So I think it's certainly possible, but as it relates to these specific fireballs that have come in the material, I don't know. But we are in that range where the debris stream would be. And super thanks from Hamath goes ham. A lot of people are getting worried about the ocean current slowing and stopping. How do you feel about it? Yeah, basically the overturning and the circulation is troubling because the ocean's warmed up so much. I have a feeling that we get these kind of reorganizations across time where sometimes you get an inversion, sometimes you don't. I think that until we get let's say like 15 years of data where it's like, okay, this is really weird now and clearly the currents have stopped for like 15 years, that we have a problem. By then though, it's also kind of a little bit too late. So it is useful to kind of forecast out ahead, but this is one of those things that we don't know if it's just a normal variation or like a bigger change. But we know that we're really influencing the Earth in significant ways. I met some friends when I was in Malta. They're from Ireland. And they said that, the jet stream used to go more up here. Now it's stopping a little short. At least their weather has changed over the past 10 years. So, I also think these sort of anecdotal reports are important, especially if you collect them from 1,000, 10,000 people, right? Like there's a lot of information in there. And you talk to your elders that have been there for their whole lives, there's a lot of wisdom there. I don't just discount that. So yeah, it seems there are some changes occurring with oceanic currents. That's very important. If we look at the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, once every 36 years, that's in the oceans effectively, Pisces representing oceans. That's speaking to there being big changes with our oceans going forward. And well, what do we see for the past 36 hours? Again, right? We see 3 big earthquakes in our oceans. So as the sun hits the same degree point as the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in February of this year. So, you know, it's all basically, the code is in front of you if you know how to read it. It's really, really cool stuff. So thanks for your super thanks. Nancy, thank you for your super thanks as well. And thank you everyone for being here as part of the stream. Mexican Sparkle, thank you as well for your super thanks coming in right before the close. So I hope all of you are doing well. Make sure you go outside. Make sure you do some earthing or grounding. Eat good, clean food at this time. Ideally plant-based because meat just sits a little heavier. So if you want to be a little bit lighter on your feet, then, you know, tofu is great. Beans are great. Rice, things of this nature, vegetables, more raw foods, fruits. These are all great things that you can eat. Just my recommendations. So yeah, lots of love and light to all of you. I'm just going to check the real-time solar wind one more time before we sign off here, just to see where it is. We'll look at it, and we have it also now, I think, finally going negative again. So it's at -4 now. It's at 24 nanotesla though. So it has dropped significantly since I went live. It went all the way to 39 just about an hour and a half ago. Now it's at 24. So we'll see how the storm progresses. I think we're going to get more periods of geostorming, G1, G2, potentially G3. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, also my clips channel, to stay up to date on all this, or linked in the video description, as well as all the different data products. So thank you all so much. Thank you, teams, for your super thanks as well. Any critical quakes in the Philippines? As of right now, no, you are good, though that could change. So wishing all of you well, love and light. See you in the next video.